Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio's The Incoherent Ramblings of C&E. Christopher and Eric are your hosts, coming to you live from Greensboro, North Carolina, as we do every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Our intro music is provided from the Podshow PodSafe Music Network. Check it out at music.podshow.com. Also, feel free to email your topics for discussion, suggestions, and comments to incoherentramblings@live.com.
Good evening. This is Christopher. It is March 19th, 2009, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I am alone here tonight. I will go ahead and say that Eric is unable to join us. He actually had not a serious emergency, but he did have something, a very serious situation come up that he found out about right around 5:30. We'll just put it this way, a friend in need. And both of us, we're close friends with each other, and both of us take our friendships very seriously. And we will put a priority of a friend in need. We'll definitely take a higher priority than even this radio show. And I think our loyal listeners will understand that. So Eric is unable to be here with us tonight. He sends his regrets and looking forward to being here next week. And Eric's kind of disappointed because we have a really good show tonight. We are dedicating 40 minutes of this show to the subject of guns. And Eric and I are both gun owners, as well as we are members at the same shooting range and frequent that range together. Another announcement, Joe West, one of the individuals who was going to be joining us tonight for our round table, is also unable to join us. He found out about a work obligation late yesterday afternoon that was going to take place tonight. Is completely out of his control. He didn't want to promise me he would be here, so he said don't count on it. However, his project starts at 5 o'clock, and he said if he does finish before the end of the show, he will dial in. But hey, that's, sometimes things happen. Your schedule changes up, and you just make adjustments and you go with it. So that's what we're doing tonight. So Christopher here from the internationally famous C&E Studios. Lonely without Eric in here, but we do have the show's mascot, Bella. She is in and out, hanging around. www.blogtalkradio.com/incoherent ramblings. You go there. That is our official Blog Talk Radio webpage, and you can find out everything you need to know about this show, including our MySpace page, our Facebook page, our Twitter page. Yes, we do tweet. We don't tweet, a couple hundred times a day, just once a week, an update about the show. But for people who want to follow us there, they can as well. And also, you can find the call-in number, the guest call-in number, which I will go ahead and give you right now. 646-716-6928. You can call that number at any time between 6 and 7 while the show is broadcasting live on the air, and you can use that to listen to our show. You can also use it to raise your hand and participate in the show. If you press 1 on your keypad, that will signify to me on my switchboard here that you have a question or a comment. So we welcome any and all interactions. You can email us at incoherentramblings@live.com. Excuse me. You can send suggestions. You can send news articles. last week, as a matter of fact, we actually featured a news article sent to us from an actual listener. So that's how we work here. We want to interact with our listeners, and we welcome any and all communications that you may want to have with us. So basically, that's housekeeping I just started off with. I think around 6:18, we're going to have Andrew Sides join us. He is a lifelong NRA member. Gun enthusiast is what he wanted me to, the term he wanted me to use, not expert. However, he is very knowledgeable, especially at such a young age. And he is coming today prepared with some stuff. So that's going to be right around 6:18, 6:20. We will delve into that. But hey, you know what? One of the things we're known for, pretty much more than anything else, is our incoherent ramblings. So we had to even as serious as the topic of gun and gun ownership is, and as serious as I take that, we had to carve out some time from today's show to do a little bit of incoherent rambling. So I got it for you. Got a few stories here. I have these two stories are kind of linked, only because one involves greed and the next involves the exact opposite, like actual sincere generosity. And stick with us and you'll find out what I mean. This first story here is fairly current, March 18th, that was yesterday. Wife divorcing an ex-CEO says $43 million is not enough. 36-year-old Swedish countess says she needs more than $53,000 a week. $53,000 every week. She needs more than that for alimony from her soon-to-be ex-husband. Hartford, Connecticut, a 36-year-old Swedish countess divorcing a former CEO says she cannot live on $43 million. Now, I'm reading this article as it is. I don't know where they got this number from, because when I do 53,000 times 52, I come up with around around 27 million. Anyhow, maybe that's over a certain period of years. I'm not really sure where they came up with these figures. I'm just reading the story. However, Marie Douglas David, a former investment banker, says she has no income and needs her 67-year-old husband, George David, to pay her more than $53,000 a week, more than most U.S. households make in a year, to cover her expenses. David stepped down last year as chief executive at Hartford-based United Technologies Corp., but is still the chairman of the company, and chairman of the board, and has an estimated net worth of $329 million. He and his wife accuse each other of extramarital affairs. Their divorce trial started Wednesday. She goes on to say, "I'm just very sad that we are where we are. I hope we resolve this soon and everybody can move on with their lives." David briefly took the stand, and when he was asked if his marriage was irrevocably broken, he simply answered yes. I'm not going to read all this, but it goes on saying the marriage was in trouble as early as 2004. They were married in 2002. The couple signed a post-nuptial agreement in October 2005 that would give her $43 million when they divorced. That's where that number came from. He was just going to give her $43 million when she leaves. She wants the agreement invalidated, even though she signed it. She has accused her. Now, keep in mind, she's 36. He's 73. He's 67, but still considerably her senior. She has accused him of coercing her to sign it by preying upon her fears of being divorced and childless. I would welcome someone preying on my fears by forcing $43 million down my throat. David is asking the judge to uphold the agreement. His attorneys asked for a separate hearing. The judge declined. Douglas David has filed her court papers showing she has more than $53,800 in weekly expenses, including maintaining a Park Avenue apartment, 3 residences in Sweden. Her weekly expenses also include $700 for limousine service, $4,500 for clothes, $1,000 for hair and skin treatment, $1,500 for restaurants and entertainment, and $8,000 for travel. At that rate, she would burn through the $43 million in less than 16 years. Here's an interesting statistic. The Census Bureau estimates that the median U.S. household income in 2007 was just over $50,000. That means, let's say you have a couple, they have 3 children. The couple's combined salaries, just over $50,000 a year. That's the median. She has expenses of $53,800 every week. I really don't know that she needs to have that money. She may need it to keep her current lifestyle. However, she doesn't need it. She quit her job as an investment banker so she could travel with her husband to entertain his clients. Basically, I was just reading the story because it's kind of sad that here is this person, in my opinion, greedy, and in my opinion, not really. It's almost disgusting, the state of the current economy, and to look at some people don't even make $53,800 a year, and she's spending that per week and saying that she needs more because she can't live on that. That is insulting to me. So jump right over from that story to our next story. The absolute opposite end of the spectrum. Teen gives away thousands in cash he found. Cops say this good kid came across a bag full of $100 bills in a ditch. This comes from Rosemount, Minnesota. A week ago, March the 12th, a 16-year-old Minnesota boy has given away thousands of dollars to fellow students in his school aid. The bag of money he found was apparently tossed by a drug dealer. When he asked how he got the $100 bills, at first he said it was his allowance. He later said he found it in a ditch. Police went there and they found marijuana in scales, thus leading them to the conclusion it was put there by a drug dealer. The boy has been described as being learning disabled. He's given away about $11,000 of the nearly $18,000 that was in the bag. Law officers were able to collect the money from students and the school bus aide, who have reported someone slipped $1,200 into her bag. The boy is not expected to face charges. A sheriff deputy says he's a good kid who was trying to help people in need. So you look at this story, how many of us, if we were walking along and we found a bag full of $18,000, completely untraceable, just laying in the ditch? Sometimes it's a tough question, and no raise of hands, as they would say sometimes if you were in a public setting. But how many of us would actually just completely? If being learning disabled, he was probably didn't really realize that he should have contacted the authorities and given it over. But how many of us would not just keep it and not say anything to anybody? This kid was giving it away. And then, look, there's another little piece of honesty and a good person here. The school bus aide reported that someone slipped $1,200 into her bag. She could have kept her mouth shut. Nobody would have ever known the difference. She takes that information to the authorities and let them know as well. So on one hand, we have a lady who can't even live. She says she can't live on $53,800 a week. On the other hand, we have a young man who finds $18,000 and just starts playing, he just starts anonymously handing out money to people. So I see where he shouldn't have been doing that. But obviously he had good intentions, and I'd say good for him. His heart was definitely in a good place. Next story we have here, have you ever heard, we all know the expression checks in the mail. Obviously, we've heard that, and sometimes it's become a joke. Basically, here is a story of something 47 years late. A woman's postcard bearing greetings from Montana has finally arrived in northeastern Ohio 47 years later. Insurance agent Dave Kahn opened his post office box in the community of Hudson last week and found the mailing sent from Helena, Montana in 1962. It was sent to Marion White, the previous owner of the box, who had passed away in 1988. The writer signed the postcard Fran. Mentioned having a marvelous time in Montana. After asking around, he determined the card must have come from White's well-traveled friend Frances Murphy, a longtime reporter at the Akron Beacon Journal. She died in 1998 at the age of 75. U.S. Postal Service spokesman Victor Dubina says the postcard may have been stuck in equipment or lost behind a mail chute. Regardless of the reason, it's obvious that it was lost. 47 years after mailed. I think you could walk from Montana to Ohio in less than 47 years. So there's a neat little story. Everybody knows the joke about the kid saying his dog ate the homework. Well, right here from our home state of North Carolina, a little town called Apex, outside. It was a suburb basically now of Raleigh. Didn't used to be, but Raleigh has grown so. A North Carolina family's dog didn't eat the children's homework. He ate the mom's money. Kelly Davis said she had an extra $400 in cash to deposit after working extra hours as a physical therapist. She told the News and Observer of Raleigh that on Friday she planned to deposit the money, but it wasn't in her pocket. She remembered leaving it in the bedroom, and it occurred to her the family's 2-year-old Greater Swiss Mountain Dog, Augie, might have eaten it. Davis took the dog for a walk. She found parts of 3 $100 bills and 5 $20s in his leavings, is how we're referring to it now, leavings. She washed them with a garden hose and hopes to find enough pieces to exchange them for cash. A professor at the North Carolina State University Veterinarian School said the money should not hurt the dog. NC State, world-renowned for their veterinary program, so I'm sure she's receiving some good information there. So next time your kid says the dog ate his homework, you might want to consider taking his word for it. Maybe he's telling the truth, he or she. But I thought that was an interesting little story. I'm thinking that she's probably not going to get enough of this money back to recoup it. More than likely, what's going to happen is she's basically going to have to lose $400 and come to terms with that. Once again, if you're just joining us, and I see some that have, Eric is not here with us tonight. We have someone in our chat room. So welcome. And let's see if this is, I don't know who this is. We'll find out who it is. Andrew still has not joined us, but that's okay. I have a story that I was saving specifically to lead us into our next segment. And I will save it for that time. Here's a story comes from us from Ebensburg, Pennsylvania, I believe. So basically, this is the caption here is Amish farmer gets jail in outhouse dispute. Man accused of refusing to bring privies into compliance with sewage laws. A Western Pennsylvania Amish farmer was sentenced Tuesday to 90 days in jail after refusing to bring 2 outhouses into compliance with state sewage laws. I wonder if anywhere in this court case they're going to use the term leavings, like we had in the story before, the dog's leavings. Andy Schwartzentruber of Ebensburg cited his conservative religious beliefs in refusing to abide by a court order to make the privies used by school children compliant and pay a $500 fine. Cambria County Judge Norman Krummenacker said he respected the Amish religious beliefs but had no choice but to sentence Schwartzentruber to jail and fine him $1,000 for being in contempt of court. The judge says, quite frankly, this is not a religious issue. So the judge orders the outhouse locked. Amish farmer refused to do it, and basically he was fined. He refused to pay the fine, and now he's going to jail. It was never an issue of religious freedom. It's a victory for the environment and public health. I will take a stand for my religion, he said in a low voice. If I don't, it could destroy the whole church group. So basically, I am a professing Christian, not ashamed of it whatsoever. And there are certain things I would have to assume I would ignore or not do if the law mandated, if it went directly against a belief. But however, there is Scripture, plenty of it supporting in the Bible, how we are supposed to obey the laws of our land. So I really cannot see where this farmer felt he was his religious rights and beliefs were being infringed upon by asking him to come in compliance with sewage. Well, that is the end of all of our stories except for one. And that story I'm saving for right now. We have joining us Andrew Sides. As I said earlier, lifelong NRA member and gun enthusiast. That was the term that he elected. I was going to say gun expert. And he's, I guess, too modest to assume that cloak. However, he is very knowledgeable in the ways of guns. Don't let his modesty fool you. Joe West may not be joining us because he has some work issues that came up last minute. If he can join us, he will. And as I said earlier, Eric unfortunately had a friend in need and like I said before, friends in need take priority over this radio show. So it was going to be a round table of 4 people. The table just shrunk, and it's just going to be 2 of us. So I'm going to bring Andrew online here with us, and we are going to discuss all manner of guns. So let's see if we can get Andrew here with us. Oh, that's not Andrew. Wait a second. Andrew, are you here? Hello? Are you on mute? Hello? Well, it appears we're having technical difficulty. I cannot hear Mr. Sides. Oh, you can hear me. Okay. He is letting me know in his chat session that he's not on mute and he can hear me. Well, it's good that he can hear me because that means our other listeners and people that will be listening later can hear me. I don't know if that's a good thing. Andrew, can you try again? I'm not sure. I have unmuted his call. I tell you what, I want to try. If you don't mind, Andrew, I'm going to hang up on you, And if you can just do your click to talk to come back in, we'll see if we can get it to work again. Okay. I have hung up on Andrew, and we're going to see if he can dial back into the show, and we'll give this another shot. So just bear with us, please. We're experiencing a little technical difficulty. If Eric were here, Eric could tell us a funny little story and laugh for us, but he is not here. So here we go again. I now see him on my switchboard. I'm going to unmute him. And now caller is on air. Andrew, can you hear me? Well, I am not sure what the problems, what the problem is. We've never had a listener or a caller use the click to talk function before. All of our previous callers have called in otherwise, so I'm not sure what's going on. Here we have another caller. Let's see if it's Andrew.
Hello, Chris, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
Your hand is raised. I saw your hand go up. So how are you tonight, Andrew?
Very good, sir. Very good. I do apologize for the technical difficulties there. I'm not sure where the break in the communication ended up.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, this is the first time we've ever used this functionality, and so I know that. I mean, when I've listened to the Blog Talk Radio like one-on-one show and heard other people, I know that a lot of people use it. In fact, a lot of people actually broadcast live from a headset as well. I actually use my speakerphone on my cell phone, and that seems to work well for me. But I don't know what's going on there. I will maybe Eric and I will run a little test run sometime between now and the next show to see if we can figure out what's going on there, because we obviously would like that functionality to work, because we would like our listeners to be able to use it if they wanted to.
Well,
so
I think all we need is someone who's an IT professional to be on the line, and we should be good. If someone who works in IT for a living was here, then well, I guess no, that probably wouldn't help any more than we are right now, would it?
Yes, Andrew is. I think if you are listening, you probably caught on that Andrew and I both work in IT, so. We can't figure it out. We actually do have live help available between, I think, 6 and 11 o'clock. But I would just, and last time I emailed them for help, they told me to contact them as the problem was happening. But that may be a little bit awkward to try to run the show and also chatting with the technical help available. So, well, we'll just we'll try to figure it out between now and the next show, and we'll just do it for this way for now. So I appreciate you joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
We I think you probably heard we are minus Eric, and we are also minus Joe West. So it's just the two of us. But I do have a story that if people who have been listening and have heard our show, I think they will see the connection here to why I'm actually doing it. And it does actually involve a gun, so that's why I'm using it as a lead-in. But we actually have we have received this part of this incident was recorded live, and we've received this recording. So I'm going to read the story, and then I'm going to play the recording that we've received. This takes place in Malaysia. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of the city. Man mistakes woman for a monkey and shoots her. Malaysian police say the victim was picking fruit in the neighbor's tree. Police said the man shot his neighbor, mistaking her for a monkey, as she was picking a sapodillo fruit in his tree. I'm not going to try to pronounce this name. Police chief in the state where they are said the woman was gathering fruit Thursday when her neighbor shot her. The man came home and saw a rustling in the tree and fired into it. Then there was screaming, and only then did he know it was his neighbor. He said the woman was hospitalized with a wound to the abdomen, but her condition was stable. Police were investigating the man, a volunteer security corps member, for illegally discharging a firearm, which carries a maximum prison term of 2 years. And here is the actual footage that I was able to apprehend of part of this actual incident. And there we have it. Live, recorded live in Malaysia. This man shot his neighbor in his tree. The reason why I use this story as a lead-in is because we're talking about guns, and I think one of the most important, if not the most important aspect of gun ownership is responsible gun ownership. And part of being a responsible gun owner is knowing your local, your state, your federal laws, regardless of what country you're in, and abiding by them. Obviously, this man was not, he either knew the law and broke it, or didn't know the law, and if he was a volunteer security corps member, I would think that he probably knew the law. Nonetheless, apparently it must be illegal in the state that he lives in Malaysia, because they said that he could receive 2 years in prison. So he either didn't know the law or knew the law and voluntarily broke it. Number two, I really am not sure he should have been shooting the monkey, period. But if he was going to shoot the monkey, he should have absolutely, positively known it was a monkey. It said he thought she was a monkey. He just fired aimlessly into a tree. Fortunately, the lady is not dead, and fortunately, she is in stable condition and will be, it sounds like, recovering. But this could have been fatal if it had struck her in the head or in a artery where she would have bled to death before she could have received the medical attention she needed. So took a somewhat, I found, humorous story and going to turn it into a serious topic, our topic tonight on guns. So we have with us Andrew Sides, gun enthusiast, and I am going to bring up our little format that we have for tonight's. Basically, we're just talking about several different topics with guns. I'm just going to kind of throw a few out there, and then Andrew and I are going to get started. Gun safety, responsible ownership. A lot of it, in my opinion, is just plain common sense. I recently took a gun safety course with my co-host, Eric, and I mean, it was like everything they were telling us, it was just like, well, yeah, I mean, of course, but I don't think that it's silly that we had to sit through that class, and I don't think it's silly that you have those rules and all of those topics that were covered repeated over and over, because I think it needs to be ingrained in your head because it's that important. So gun safety, responsible ownership, home and self-defense, gun rights, and then we're going to get some information from Andrew as far as his personal preference, whether it be for actual home or self-defense, just shooting, recreational shooting, plinking, going to the range, And I just want to throw in there real quick, going to the range, if you own a gun, going to the range is important because it keeps you in practice and it creates muscle memory so that if you ever are in a situation, God forbid, where you have to use the gun as a last resort, you don't want to have to think about it. You want it to be able to just happen. We're going to go over brands that we feel are good quality and that we would recommend purchasing. And then anything else that Andrew may have come up with that he would like to share. I do have one small little piece of information I want to share as well. So, Andrew, as far as gun safety, responsible ownership, just throw some stuff out there for us as far as, you know, like I said, you can agree with this or disagree with it, that's fine, but to me, a lot of it, most of it, is just common sense. But, you know, storage, transporting, handling, storage at home, storage on your person if you are legally permitted to do so. Just things like that, if you'd like to share a little bit on that.
Absolutely, and the story that you brought up, Chris, makes a great segue into the handling specifically aspect of gun safety and responsible ownership. In the case of that unfortunate incident in Malaysia, I would strongly argue that even if local and federal laws for that particular place were lax enough to have inclusions for things such as firearms usage in general and year-round hunting of, say, pests that were attacking your crops, which I'm assuming was part of the reasoning behind this man's shooting his tree out his window. Even if the local laws and federal laws allowed him to be in a position where it's okay, legally speaking, for him to shoot out a window at night into the branches of one of his trees to try to kill what I guess in this case the monkey would be considered a varmint attacking his crops. The gentleman violated what is considered fairly universally the most important rule of safely handling a gun, which is always point a gun in a safe direction. Now,
right.
That's a very general statement, and it's supposed to be, because you're supposed to have to analyze your situation, and then in that situation figure out what the definition is for the term safe direction. What some instructors define that is that imagine that your gun, whether you're carrying it, about to fire it, putting it back in the case, cleaning it, any of those situations, imagine that it always has a lethal laser beam going an infinite distance out the muzzle, and this laser beam is never turned off. If your gun was that way, you would have no choice but to always point it in the safe direction. And that's the number one universal gun safety law, simply because you can break any other granular law or specific law, and there are a whole lot of wonderful, I'm sorry, I'm using the wrong terminology, rules. You could break any other safety rules, but if you were following this one, the bottom line is no one would get hurt or killed. And there are a lot of other great rules, but with this one, if you are always pointing your firearm in a safe direction, then it follows that there is no way anyone can get hurt. If we were to break down this guy's situation, obviously he was shooting at a rustle in the leaves, and as you pointed out, it was rather an aimless decision in that he didn't establish what his target was. He didn't make sure that he wasn't risking human life in his endeavor to shoot into the branches of his trees. So So that oversight on him, he didn't do a little bit of a risk-reward analysis to say, if I'm risking shooting anything other than a monkey, is it really worth accepting that risk when the highest possible reward I could have for taking this action is simply stopping an animal from eating the fruit of my tree?
Right.
So that's one example that can be applied to that universal rule of handling, of always point your firearm in a safe direction. And I'm of the opinion that should be applied to all types of firearms in all situations, from high-powered semi-automatic assault rifles all the way down to spring-powered Red Ryder BB guns. A culture of safety and care is really what helps us avoid the misuse of firearms and any accidents like this that just really don't need to be happening if, as you pointed out, a little common sense was applied in the first place.
Exactly. Yep, and it really is. It really is common sense. Last week, I can't remember if it was Utah or Oregon. Unfortunately, a man was cleaning his gun. He had taken the magazine out, and when you take your magazine out, you're supposed to clear the chamber, and you're supposed to check, double-check, triple-check, check as many times as you feel necessary to know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that there is not a bullet in the chamber. Some people call me Mr. Monk because I'm a little bit Mr. Monkish about a few things, and I may check 3 or 4 times, and I don't think that's silly. Now, this was a horrible, tragic accident. I don't have the report in front of me, but the police do not suspect foul play whatsoever. Obviously, there will be legal implications because, if you take someone's life, something's going to happen. And it's a horrible situation. The man has got to be just seriously stricken with grief. But if the gun had been pointed in a safe direction, now I guess there is the possibility, a freak possibility, it was pointed in a safe direction and his son just was dashing through the room playing or doing whatever and just happened to do that. I don't know the circumstances around that, but unless some freak accident like that, if the gun were pointed in a safe direction, that bullet would have went out on that infinite laser beam that Andrew used as an analogy, and nobody would have been struck by it. You may have had to get some sheetrock dope out and fix the hole in the wall and paint over it, and that would have been about it. Universally, that is the number one. There's I think about 4 rules that they drill into your head repeatedly over and over, but that is universally accepted as the absolute most important. And I like it that you pointed that out, Andrew. There are a lot of other great rules, and there's a lot of other great guidelines to follow. However, that is one that if it is always followed, it kind of makes the rest of them, it doesn't matter if the rest of them are followed or not, because then you will never have an accidental injury or death. And so that's a great point to bring up. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as storage, and I'll let you address this, but as far as storage is concerned, a lot of people, I understand the manufacturers, when they send the guns out, when you buy a gun, it comes with locks. Depending on where you buy it, it may come with a different kind of lock. Your local governing city, state, whatever law may require you to have, the ammunition in a different room. I mean, there's all kinds of laws. So the best thing to do is to check your local laws, regardless of guns. It's, like Andrew said, it's not just handguns. They have such a bad rap. I don't understand that. I'm going to get on a rant right here. I can go and take 5 days for a background check in Guilford County of North Carolina before I can go buy my pistol. Yeah, I can go to Dick's Sporting Goods, buy a 12 gauge, buy a pack of shells, and go start blowing people up with it. That, to me, I don't understand. To me, that's just ridiculous, but end of rant. The fact of the matter is, it's not just handgun. Any kind of firearm, period, should be treated with the highest amount of respect and always pointed in a safe direction. But, as far as being stored, I am currently single. I do not have anyone else in the house with me. I may be breaking the law, I don't know. But I do not store mine like a lot of people do, with ammo in one room and a magazine and under the couch and the pistol, in the freezer. I don't subscribe to all that foolishness, because the point of having it for self and home defense is negated if it cannot be used. But still, if there are minors involved, we all have a responsibility to know that at all times that our gun cannot be accessed by a minor. And so where my gun is right now is in a very safe place. And if I were going to have anyone in the house with me that would be underage, it would be moved to a place where they would not be able to get their hands on it. And I think that's another important thing. But the thing is check your local laws on that. Andrew?
Absolutely. And a good way to check the local laws is simply doing a basic internet search for first, I guess, your state, followed by the term handgun or concealed carry. Those will usually point you towards the directions, and specifically look for websites that end with .gov, because you'll see a number of private sites that attempt to try to consolidate laws and point you in the right direction, and those are often very, very valid and useful. But just for your listening audience, it's important. The rubber meets the road on the Department of Justice sites, which usually, like I said, end with the .gov extension, and that should be your final authority for figuring out the laws in terms of whether it's handling, usage, or storage. Another important consideration there is broadly speaking, the way the laws work are in somewhat of a funnel, if you will, in that as we progress from the federal level to the state level, and then from the state level to the county level, and then potentially even from the county level to a city level, or even a specific building or establishment or so forth, restrictions always are funneled. So at each lower level, laws can be more restrictive, but laws cannot at the lower levels relax requirements that are put in place at the higher levels. So as Chris pointed out, it's good to be familiar with both your state regulations, but then also your county regulations, and even to a certain degree, specific buildings and areas and gatherings. And that's far too detailed a subject for me to even speculate on specifics for any particular area during this broadcast. But that should be able to get any individual started and getting a good feel for what the do's and don'ts are of ownership and storage from a legal perspective.
Absolutely.
To your point, from the home perspective, assuming you followed Part A and you're within the parameters of the law, there are a whole lot of considerations for inside your home, and you absolutely hit the nail on the head, with the most important one probably being children. And I think as responsible gun owners, we assume the responsibility purposefully that we are, especially if we own guns for the sake of self-defense, that we assume the responsibility of defense of the innocent. And to in laziness or neglect, have the ownership and possession of one of our firearms result in a child being injured, then that violates the very platform that we stand on for why we would own a gun with the flying the flag of self-defense. So you're absolutely right in that the first consideration should probably be, will none of my children or any visiting children have the potential to be hurt in my home by my firearms?
Right.
And there are a lot of different ways to make sure that happens that probably aren't concrete, set in stone ways. It's going to depend on the age and responsibility level of the children. It's going to be depending on the security and the placement of the firearms and the difficulty of being able to actually operate the firearm and do damage. So there's a lot there that, again, may be too granular for the scope of this broadcast. But generally speaking, just to throw my opinion out there, if a person has more than a few guns, I'm a big proponent of a gun safe, something that's permanent, where guns that are heirlooms or collector's items, what have you, can be locked away so that they are 100% of the time safe from not only children or visitors, but also in the event of burglary. And that outside of that case, if there are guns that are specifically for the purpose of home and self-defense, that those guns could be in a more available location. Now, conversely to my endorsement of having a good, solid safe bolted to the floor for your, to put your granddaddy's double barrel 12-gauge shotgun that you're saving to put in your own will for future generations. Conversely to that level of security, I'm not a fan of trigger locks and other mechanisms like that have been developed for a lot of guns that were supposed to perform self-defense functions. Because as Chris pointed out just a few minutes ago, if your firearm becomes unavailable to you, then you won't be able to use it in that time of need. Moreover, it may even become a liability to you if you end up in an altercation and find yourself fumbling with a useless firearm. So there's got to be a balance there between, the safety and protection of the innocent that we don't want to violate because of our own neglect, but also being able to be capable and competent gun handlers in the moment when self-defense might be necessary.
Absolutely. My guns all came with gun locks. They're required by federal law to have those. None of my gun locks are in use. In fact, they're all hanging out together in a drawer. If I have a gun, like if it's heirloom, a collector's item, something that I just take out and shoot a couple times a year, that's different. But the gun that I have that's for my home defense, the only way it can properly be used for home defense if it's ready to be used at any given time. Obviously, if there are children or minors in the house, there's different precautions you can take. There are small gun safes that can fit in your nightstand drawer that can be opened in a matter of seconds, and there you have access to a fully loaded gun. But having the gun in one room and the ammo and the magazine in a different room, to me, is if you are ever in a situation where you're forced to use it, it's of no use to you at that time, so it's really no point in having it. So to go on the safety thing real quick, I just want to read the actual law against storage to protect minors. Any person who resides in the same premise as a minor, owns or possesses a firearm, and stores or leaves the firearm in a condition that the firearm can be discharged and in a manner that the person knew or should have known that an unsupervised minor would be able to gain access to the firearm is guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor if a minor gains access to the firearm without the lawful permission of the minor's parents or a person having charge of the minor, and the minor possesses in violation, exhibits in a public place, or carelessly, in a careless, angry, or threatening manner causes personal injury or death with it not self-defense or uses it in the commission of a crime. So that's the actual federal law as it is worded as far as protecting minors from accessing a firearm. So we've discussed safety, responsible ownership. We've discussed home and self-defense. I don't want to get into the whole gun rights thing. We could make, Andrew and I, without the help of anyone else, can make that a 2-hour show.
Certainly.
So suffice it to say, I saw a T-shirt the other day, and I'm embarrassed that I don't remember the date. I think it's 1769. Forgive me if that's wrong, but anyhow, it said the only permit I need, and then underneath it had an eagle, and it said the Second Amendment, 1769, or whatever the date was. And there are certain people in our country that will argue till they're blue in the face against things, and they will use the Constitution as their backing. But those same people, more often than not, skip right over the Second Amendment. And it makes me crazy. So gun rights, we have the right to own it. But with that right comes great responsibility, and the responsibility to be, safe and responsible ownership. That's why we discussed that first. But home defense, self-defense, again, even if you don't plan on carrying concealed, you should go take a safety class because you need to know the laws. If you have a gun in your home, you don't have to have a permit to carry it concealed. But you do need to know what the laws are, specifically for where you live, on when you can and when you cannot use that gun in defending your home. So for home and self-defense, that's all I'm going to say. You need to go take a class. You need to know what the laws are where you live. We're about out of time. I hate to say it, but just real quick, Andrew, throw out your favorite, say, 3 brands of handguns.
Ooh, well, that's a tough one. Top 3. I definitely have to go with Glock, Smith & Wesson, and Beretta is a strong brand too, and those may not even be my top 3 because there are so many good ones depending on what you're looking for. HK, there's a lot of good ones. What I would do if you don't mind is instead of talking specifically about brands, I might try to really briefly introduce your audience to the type of handgun that I think would be the best to progress through as a novice gun user.
Sure, absolutely.
Does that work?
Yeah.
As far as beginning to use handguns, as recognizing that firearms are a dangerous tool and occasionally even a complicated tool, I'm a big fan for any person new to firearms, especially new to handguns, first using a revolver. A revolver is a great way to understand the basics of how a firearm works. Very few moving parts, very few complexities, mechanically speaking, to distract a new gun user from learning what should be learned first, which is really the basics of safety and confidence and operating a firearm properly. So even though it's great fun to shoot semi-automatics and talk about semi-automatics, and that most intermediate to advanced handgun users probably prefer semi-automatics, revolvers are a great place to start, and they're, any brand will usually be serviceable, whether it's Colt or Ruger. There are a lot of good brands out there of revolvers to get started with, and you can usually rent a firearm at your local shooting range if you want to get something to just try. I recommend try renting a revolver and see how it goes.
I agree. 100%. Less moving parts. Less moving parts, 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 less moving par easier learning curve, and definitely recommended. And not to be sexist, recommend it for women as well to start off with.
Absolutely.
I'm going to play us out, and then you and I can say, well, too late. Show is on, but not streaming. So that's fine. That's not a problem at all. Basically, what happens here is the show will keep recording up to a total of 2 hours. However, it cuts us off, and it's no longer live. So anybody who was listening live is no longer hearing that. But for our listeners that download, and most of our listeners do download and listen to it after the fact, they'll hear the continuation of this. But we can keep on that line. I wholeheartedly agree. The first gun I ever shot, other than a BB gun, was a 12 gauge shotgun. I think I was eight years old, and it was under the very strict and knowledgeable supervision of my maternal grandfather. The second gun that I shot was a revolver. I know for a fact it was actually a 38 Special, which, if I'm not mistaken, shoots 357s. And I shot it and shot it and shot it many, many times, under supervision, of course. And then from there, I progressed on to shooting other guns. But the shotgun was just a thing where I wanted to shoot it, and my grandfather finally broke down and said yes. But I do agree, revolver is the way to go, absolutely. And it's still a great gun to own. I mean, if you're going to get a permit to carry concealed, a revolver isn't a bad choice. You don't have the same capacity as far as ammunition is concerned, but more often than not, I believe they might actually, for some people, actually be better in small, close situations where when you're in public, more often than not, that's what happens. It's not really something that you're never in a situation legally where you can shoot at someone and they're 100 feet away from you. You have to be an immediate and imminent threat of death, serious bodily harm, or sexual assault, and most of those are going to occur, at least if you realize they're getting ready to occur, within close proximity of your person. So I agree, that's a good point. Revolvers is a great gun, a great way to start, and go to your local range and rent some guns and shoot and see what feels good to you. Well, we're going to go ahead and call it a night, but as I stated earlier, as far as the whole gun rights is concerned, I know we can make an entire show out of that, and I know that Eric is very much interested in this topic as well. So I am going to invite Andrew Sides to come back at a future show, and hopefully we could even add Joe West back to that show as well, where we can have multiple opinions and input from multiple people. And Eric and I sell ourselves short. Both of us have been handling and shooting guns for the majority of our lives, so we're familiar with them. We just may not know the terminology and have quite the experience with as many different types of guns as Andrew and certainly Joe, who have a lot of experience in that department. So, Andrew, would you be interested in coming back on a future show?
I'd love to.
Cool. That is good news. So we will we'll go ahead and wrap it up right here. And Andrew, I do appreciate you joining tonight. And hopefully next time we'll have our technical stuff in order. We won't have any issues, but if we do, we do. And I'll talk with Eric about a future date. It won't be next week. We'd like to kind of, it could be next week. Eric and I will confer, and we will come up with a decision, but we will also coordinate with you and Joe times that will work for both of you as well. So once again, thank you for your time and joining our show, and we will look forward to a show when you join in the future.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, and to our listeners who have stuck out with us, I am now going to play our outro. Thank you for listening.
This has been Blog Talk Radio's The Incoherent Ramblings of C&E. Christopher and Eric are your hosts, and we would like to thank you for listening to our show today. Don't forget to tune in for next week's show, live from Greensboro, North Carolina, as we are every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time.